Here we go. So welcome from my side. I'm happy to present the results of our use case, which is formerly known as, where is it? Here is it, as IDS at DCM. We have already presented the first steps in Paris, beginning of December, if you remember. And now we have finished the first step last week. We got liberated from the steering committee with our supply chain manager. So the situation in general when we started was that we were facing lots of imponderables, such as hardly predictable requirements to amounts, packaging, dedicated local situations, which employees sometimes are not aware of, and so on. It's a very complex business to make the right decision at the right time in order to avoid any interruption of production, which is the most important criteria for any industrial company. So as everybody knows, so data becomes more and more important and valuable, of course. If you start discussing about data sharing, one of the first arguments brought up from the very first beginning is usage control, together with worth and value of data. So if you start a discussion, this is one of the first arguments that will come up. Okay, what you can see here in this slide is the results on the left side of a statistics survey from German Logistics Association concerning data sharing. And the interesting thing here is, from our perspective, that the identified type of data, which is named in this column, this matches perfectly with the requirements that we have identified as industry partners at the most important information at any stage of supply chains. If I'm talking about we, I'm talking about the consortium consisting in industry partners, thyssenkrupp and Volkswagen, of course, and our research partner, Fraunhofer ISST. So on the right side, you can see the data types, which firstly, there's type of data being already exchanged, such as regular call-offs. Secondly, there's data which nobody's happy to share, such as stocks information, and data which is out of any discussion to be shared, like employees' data, personal information, for instance. From the very first beginning, we were convinced that supply chain transparency contributes to the following. Firstly, it's works and tasks. Supply chain transparency means less workload. It means better prepared and fundamentally thought business decisions. And at least it's less stress for everybody in the loop, contributing to health at work, like burnout syndromes and so on. Secondly, it's material and resources. We're talking about packaging material, better planning, reasonable election or combination of modes of transport. In supply chain, you're often quite often discussing about snapshots like express freight, flash services, air freight, dedicated air freight, and so on, which is almost very expensive. And material and resources, better control of material and resources leads to zero emissions, leads to sustainability, environmental responsibility. We're talking about carbon dioxide. There's lots of initiatives around, such as zero emissions till the year 2050, less water, less energy. In general, it's the reduction of the ecological footprint. Okay, in early 2019, we have established a consortium between industry and research partners, as I told you before. It consists in thyssenkrupp and Volkswagen as key partners in global industry, and Fraunhofer ISST as research partner. We have identified a dedicated supply chain. Volkswagen and thyssenkrupp are representing lots of supply chain, but we have decided for one typical supply chain with clearly defined participants, part numbers called IT systems, and so on. We took it as a showcase supply chain. It was a blueprint for any type of analysis, discussion, and ideas that we have pointed out. The idea was to keep it as simple as possible in general, with 3 dedicated information to be shared: its stocks, its demands, and production. A setup of a quick and easy data connection, the definition of 2 kinds of data inquiry, scheduled or on demand, the limitation of update inquiries as precaution of misuse, the implementation of usage control mechanisms in order to avoid any type of data exports. And one of the most the most relevant ideas was that everything needs to be shown in dashboards on each side. We have we have here the one from thyssenkrupp, and the same we have got for Volkswagen. Looking at the usage control stack, there are certain characteristics that got resolved technical-wise, such as front-end access, permission of external APIs, data retention, and of course the history of data. Things that could not be restricted or technical-wise resolved need to be embedded in a framework in order to be elaborated for any type of applications. So the idea was to create a standard for any type of application. And if you talk about the contractual side, we're talking about the legal framework and the certification of the IDS. Concerning the last 2 mentioned frameworks, this one, we're happy to be supported by the IDSA Association, of course, with working groups and committees joined by experts of the IDSA community. Mr. Andreas has shown the community before. It's more than 100 companies and lots of other specialists. So looking outside to where we as a consortium have identified other potential use cases, we found out that there might be some in research and development. If you look to intellectual property discussion, zero emission is another thing, like carbon dioxide tracking, for instance. It supplies in general, whether it's resource tracking or contractual management. You're talking about, for instance, about kids' work, about legal or illegal mining, talking about lithium, for instance, or any type of nickel or whatever, these type of metals that is used in battery production, and others, of course. There's lots of about customer data, connected car data that we receive, and so on. Well, and last but not least, this is our team. It's Kai Bormann from thyssenkrupp. It's Sebastian Opriel from Fraunhofer, ISST, and my person. Please feel warmly welcome to contact us for any type of questions right here afterwards, or if there might come up any question in a few days or whatever, just take up the phone or send an email or contact us via social media, of course.